Maybe even tell me to
Yeah, do you mind just grabbing chairs? I just saw his
What, 4 on the panel? We need 6 chairs.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I'm so bright, my parents call me son. So we're gonna sit on the kids, is that how it's gonna work?
part about that is that the camera's face this way, but the screen is that way. So, right? Welcome to 2022. When we get to the point when Juno's going to be asking questions, you might just, if you can, turn your head to the left, and you'll be able to hear her this way, but you're going to have to be able to see her this way. You know, perfect. There's never a dull moment. And so, panelists, do you want to do a sound check, Shelby? Can we? Sure. Let's do a sound check with Juno and just see if we can get her. And Shelby gets a puppy after this because she agreed to be tech support.
Like a real puppy.
Actually, that might be like punishment. I don't know. We already have a 6-year-old that is not no puppies not
She said.
sound check. Okay, good. You can hear everyone. So once Juno, will you unmute and we're gonna try and see if we can hear you.
Sound check. Okay.
Hi, Juno.
Hey, Juno.
And Juno, are we just gonna hear you or are we gonna see you too?
I'm not sure if I can get my video working today.
And everybody can save their necks. We're just gonna hear the voice of Juno from the heavens. Say again? Is it too loud? Is it too loud?
No.
No, I think we're good. You all are amazing guinea pigs. I very much appreciate this. So Joe, we're gonna, okay, so I'm Jamie. I'm with Health, Housing, and Homeless Services, staff of the Council on Homelessness. Hey, Jamie. If you were here, there's cookies and coffee and also slips of paper and pens if you want to write questions as we go. We're gonna do questions at the end. But I'm gonna turn it over. And Joe, if you need support, because we thought Juno was gonna be in person, if you need support, let me know.
Does Juno want to do audio introductions? I'm like, Juno.
Yeah, we can definitely make it a team effort, Joe.
Boys, it's like.
Well, Juno, go ahead and kick it off as chair.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this year's CoC Learning Hub. There might be a few struggles with me talking over a little bit over the other facilitators. Bear with us as we get through this hybrid event together and hopefully come out learning a lot together as well. So just some quick introductions of the facilitators and some of the voices you'll be hearing in the first part of this agenda. Myself, I am Juno Hedrick. My pronouns are she, her, are they, them, and I am a Youth Action Council member and also the chair on the Council of Homelessness. And Joe, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe Bruto. I'm a peer support specialist, founder of Delta Peers, and I hold the lived experience advisory seat on the Council for Homelessness, as well as committee member of all the committees, and I think I'm even chair of the oversight committee, I believe. So Joe Bruno, peer support specialist, lived experience advisor on the council.
And just before we move on, a few housekeeping things for everybody. Just to let everybody know, this meeting will be recorded. And not that to mean that in a negative way, just wanted everybody in person to also know that that would be the case. For those of you on Zoom, please try to keep yourself muted most of the time. We do have a few people who are around who can mute people if needed, but please try your hardest to make sure that you do that diligently. If you have questions, there's a Q&A time for that specifically, but you can put your questions in chat. And for in-person attendees, you should have some pen and papers to write questions on, also to save your questions for the Q&A section so you don't lose your thoughts. And then a few things about language norms, or if anybody else wants to take it away here, please do. I could see the video is loading for me a little bit slowly, but I could see some people just moved up to the front, or I could finish this up. A few things about language norms. So anything we want to, basically, you want to feel free to identify yourself however you see fit, via pronouns, or any other way you would like to, via Q&A or in your sections. We are trying to move away from using a certain language in the field and are attempting to use first person first language, like people experiencing homelessness, rather than the homeless, or that's probably the best example. Yeah, so be thoughtful of your language as we move forward, and of the space, and remember to take care of yourself. So with that being said, there's, on the topic of taking care of ourselves, if you're online and end up with some kind of feeling, some big feelings, you can feel free to step out for a moment and send a private message to the host. There can be a break room to be created where people can spend some time with a mental health clinician or a peer supporter who can hopefully help with your situation and provide assistance. And yes, always remember to take care of yourself. So I believe now, it's perfect. That slide just popped up for me. I believe Kiva and Wayne, if you'd like to introduce.
Oh, there we go. So the cameras are back there. Now Zoom quit on.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to follow along with the video too. Yes, looks like we're moving on to recognition ceremonies now.
I love it. It looks like we're just off for him. Look, Zoom quit on it. So again, hi, I'm Joe Bruno. We are, the categories that we will be recognized as outstanding volunteer, outstanding landlord, and thriving in the face of homelessness. And then, yeah. So I can't read that because the screens are in the way. So
We minimize the
outstanding volunteer category is to, there it goes, there it is to recognize individuals or groups who have enriched the lives of people facing homelessness in Contra Costa County through volunteer efforts. Outstanding efforts can be demonstrated by length of involvement, by a strong concentration of service, or impact of efforts. Nominees must volunteer in the county of Contra Costa County. So we're going to recognize some names. Colin, Jack, I'm just going to say Colin because I don't want to mispronounce that last. What's it? Flyman? So the person who nominated them said that every person he comes in contact with is talked to with respect and humanity. This invisible population feels seen, heard, and treated like a human being. He has a saying, loved, known, and not alone. I love that. Yeah, that's good. Then we're also going to recognize Kevin Murray. And it says that he works tirelessly to support the needs of our unhoused and of Martinez community.
If we read your name and you're here and you can
Yes.
stand up, you can raise your hand just so we recognize that you're here. And if you're not here physically in person, you can show your face if you want to, or just lurk in the corner.
And so Raina Ortega, yay! Her ambition and love and compassion was appreciated. It was her first time getting involved in a point in time count, and since then she stayed engaged. And I must say that I nominated her because she helped me at the point in time count. So,
We'll have you come up.
yes. And so Florence Davis. Florence is faithful, loyal, and knowledgeable about services that benefit the unhoused. And Maureen thank you. She knew how important it was for our clothing room to continue to provide fresh clothing to our unsheltered members. She was persistent in her desire to serve.
Maureen, are you here?
She had to be away for a week.
Got it.
Last week.
Nice. And Kim Hunter Ray. Her services have focused on helping people avoid homelessness, or for people moving out of homelessness to set up livable residential environments.
So for those of you that were recognized and that are here, you can come and get your certificates.
You have Kim Hunter. Thank you very And Yay.
All right, the next section.
Appreciate the service.
Thank you, everybody, and appreciate it.
Heavens. Take it along.
Move on to the next section here. We'll be recognizing some outstanding landlords. The outstanding landlord / property manager category is to recognize owners or property management companies that enrich the lives of people facing homelessness in Contra Costa County by providing permanent housing opportunities. Outstanding efforts can be demonstrated in several ways, including length of time involved in housing people affected by homelessness, number of units rented to individuals and/or families facing homelessness, and quality of units rented, etc. So with that being said, let's move on to the recognitions. First being Lee Robertson. The quote for Lee being, she goes out of her way to help our veterans and really tries to offer great housing to them as well as working through difficulties. And Lee, if you're there, and stand up and give a nice wave.
I'll be Lee by proxy.
Tiffany Powell. I have seen her work diligently to provide independent living facilities to those who are in need of transition housing, as well as wellness services to make them feel whole, supported, and connected to good people. And Tiffany, if you're there, give us a wave.
You should join us in person today.
Perfect, thank you. Next slide, please. Sam Bhatia. He has a calm and respectful demeanor. He treats his tenants with respect and works rapidly to resolve issues. And Sam, if you're there. Brittany / Janelle Gonzalez. They have been extremely helpful throughout the housing application process. The clients value their patience, understanding, as well as their willingness to help and ensure our clients are in a new home.
Woo!
Yes, let's not forget to applause. Thank you, everybody, for recognizing all these wonderful, outstanding landlords. Yeah, let's not forget to recognize each one, even if they're not here. Thank you. And with that, I'm not sure how many of the recognized landlords are here, but if there are any here, please step up forward and receive your certificate.
Nobody here.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll move on to the next section, which is thriving in the face of homelessness.
So thriving in the face of homelessness. Oh, gosh, personally, it's a little weird for me, but thriving. Yes, we're thriving. So thriving in the face of homelessness category is to recognize individuals who have experienced the crisis of homelessness and supported others experiencing homelessness and or moved out of homelessness themselves. So we'll start with the recognitions and with Amanda Jenkins, not Adam, Amanda Jenkins. I advocate at all levels for the residents. I've helped in housing 3 families into permanent housing, as well as I volunteer whenever possible for anything in my community regarding homelessness. Thank you, Amanda.
I don't know if Amanda's here.
Amanda's here?
Nope. Okay.
Daniel Adderholt. Daniel and his crew members cleaned every day for over 9 years and saved the American River Parkway. They have saved thousands of homeless people and their pets living through the years. Oh, that's great.
Daniel, are you
And Daniel.
There it is.
Dennis Mills. So Denise. Oh, see, thank you. It's always good to have more eyes. Yeah. Denise Mills. Denise fought to get sober and into a stable lifestyle. She is now working with the homeless to help them. She's been clean and housed for 10 years now. She's been working with homeless individuals for nearly 10 years. That's so beautiful.
Denise, are you here?
Thank you so much. And then next, so we've got Jessie Turan, other homeless herself. Jessie's made a point to organize and support those living at R.O.O.T.S, as well as other encampments. She's been very vocal in community meetings and city council meetings. Great. Wonderful. Is Jessie here? No, Jessie? Oh, look, Joe Bruno. This is me. Yeah, that's right. And I said this about myself, even though my own crisis of homelessness, mental health, and feelings of shame, stepped up and joined the Council for Homeless, where I've served as a lived experience advisor. Hey. Lisa Thomas. Woo, Lisa. Works to help the homeless population daily, has been instrumental in the development and expansion of core homeless outreach. Tamisha Walker. Her accomplishments are a lot in this community. She was once homeless with a child and worked herself into being homeowner. She's now a councilwoman, showing us that anything is possible after any hardships.
Wow.
Willie Vega. Willie Vega works at the shelter with homeless people, helping them get Medi-Cal so they can go to programs. I was one of those people. I would be dead today if he hadn't helped me. Wow.
That's it for these awards. You guys can come up and talk to the vice chair and get your certificate. By all means, be
One, two, wait, put your, yeah, put it in. Sorry, I'm all direct. Yeah, so we can see.
Yeah.
1, 2, beautiful. Thank you.
Tanisha. We're chatting. Hello. There you go. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, all our honorees.
Lisa. Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa.
I heard the voice.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Not Janice. Okay, Denise.
All right, Denise. Yeah, get in there.
Yeah. Joe Bruno.
I want
And there's one more, Daniel.
Nope.
Here
you want me to take it? Are you
that's okay.
Okay.
Can't you, I'd like her to be in it. Can't you?
Okay.
Get the picture.
Get in here.
Fabulous.
Okay. There you go.
Thanks everybody for the recognitions and the time, and I don't have an agenda.
Yeah, we're good. So
We're
panelists,
good.
panelists, come on up. Debbie, when you're ready, we're gonna have you come on up and you can sit, and now we're gonna move to the panel part.
Can I get water?
Yeah, there should be water sitting at your spot.
Wonderful.
Shelby's queuing up the videos.
So thanks everybody for the.
Now it's the
claps and
Wayne and
laughs
Keith
and
show.
the joyous.
Yeah, oh, Candace, come on up. Panelists, come, have a seat.
I'm sitting there in spirit. And,
Okay.
No, I
Then we
just-
have Is that the same idea?
Yeah. when you said chair.
Okay, it's fine.
It was.
So when you guys do your intros, then.
Juno, there's even a plant here for you.
perfect.
Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to all the recipients of the awards. My name is Kiva Dean. I am previously homeless, and I hold a community representative seat on the Contra Costa Council on Homelessness. I also am a board member of the Contra Costa Solano Food Bank, and I am really honored to be here. I was supposed to do the housekeeping, and our chairman went ahead and did that, so I'll pass it over to Wayne.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wayne Earl, and I also am formerly homeless. And today I'm the pastor at Rock Harbor Christian Fellowship in San Pablo, California. I'm the manager of special projects at the Bay Area Rescue Mission, and it's my privilege to serve as the faith community representative on the Council on Homelessness. And I'm so honored to be here, to honor those who that we are honoring today. And so I believe we are moving to the video. So Shelby, if you want to take it away.
Poor Shelby has like the worst mouse pad ever to work with back here, so patience. There we go.
Also, it's just a little brown. That's all.
video is that this is just the beginning of the conversation. And if, Shelby, if you could put that slide up there. Causes of homelessness. What causes homelessness? Think about that for a moment as
Name of occupation?
Not having enough money to pay the rent.
Hello, economics.
I think for me, the biggest one is shame.
Shame.
Feeling ashamed to ask for help. Feeling ashamed that I shouldn't be asking for help. In my situation, I know this is for my husband, but I was homeless briefly, and I held an office job where I dressed up with a business suit. And my position was to help others. And nobody knew what was I going through because I was too ashamed to speak up and to share. I just felt that nobody will understand me and I will be pretty much cast out. I felt embarrassed. And you internalize a lot. Nobody ever told me that it was okay to not be perfect. Those are childhood traumas that a lot of times you carry with you because you had to somehow be perfect so you wouldn't get beat up or in trouble. But nobody tells you the baggage you carry with you when you become a teenager, when you become an adult, or then you marry. So trauma is not necessarily what you experience in the streets. It's a result of trauma that you carry with you. I have learned all this because I did seek help for me and my child. But when I was going through, I didn't know. I had a daughter that was special needs. That was something else too, being a single parent, Hispanic, and with special needs kid. In my culture, that is something that is difficult. So there is cultural barriers too.
Absolutely. You said something that's very important. She used a word that's extraordinarily important in this situation, in this space, and that is trauma. When you have trauma, you're generally not able to give yourself the assistance you need. So we're here today because we're hearing the stories of these wonderful people who have experienced being unhoused. And we're hearing the stories of how that happened and what caused it not to be better, what caused it to be better, so that we can get that intervention. Because with trauma, you need outside intervention. And so as we go through the statistics and the numbers, as we go through the stories of Debbie and Candace and Joe, and what Wayne and I have to say. I'm sorry?
I said Juno from the heavens.
And Juno.
Yes.
Forgive me, Juno.
No worries.
Not out of sight, out of mind. As we go through the stories of these amazing and powerful people, we want you to think about some types of interventions. You've given us some examples of why homelessness happens, how homelessness happens. You've thought about those things. And you can continue to think about those things. But now we want you to think about some interventions, how that can be fixed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you some information. I saw your hand. We're going to give you some information. And as we go through giving this information and then going through the interviews, we're going to ask you to get the sheets of paper on the back table and the pens that are provided for us and write your questions down. And at the end, we will have a Q&A, okay? So I encourage you, we encourage you to continue thinking about the effects, the factors that cause and mitigate, cause and promote homelessness. We encourage you to think about the factors that will mitigate or end homelessness, and write those, any questions you have down, any statements you have, so that at the end we will do the Q&A. We just wanted to take you through some causes from the 2022 pit count. I'm gonna move a little closer because I know my eyes are gorgeous, but I'm a little side challenged. I'm a little side challenged, sir. And I know there are plenty of people in this room that can sort of, they're side challenged. So the primary condition that leads to homelessness, so we got the top 6 responses, and 27%, it's almost a third of the people who we talked to said that an argument with family or friends or a roommate was a reason for their homelessness. I worked with Employment and Human Services for 26 years. November 1st made 26 years this year. And one of the things that I did was work with the temporary homeless assistance and permanent housing assistance programs. And that was probably more than 50% of what we heard. I had an argument with my brother, I had an argument with my boyfriend, I had an argument with my dad, and I have to move out. So almost a third of the people that we surveyed are saying that they had an argument with family, friend, roommate, and they are not able to live in the same space that they were. 23%, and that's almost a third as well, says eviction or foreclosure. And so we know that during the economic downturn, we've got landlords, we've got everybody having economic issues, right? And so eviction and foreclosures are a big part of it. 20% said substance use. 14% said mental health issues, 12% said family domestic violence, and 12% said divorce and separation. So we just wanted to give you sort of a landscape, a quick view, if you can, a scan of the landscape of causes of homelessness in Contra Costa County. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to move into the panelist introductions and the questions for the panelists, okay?
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce our panelists. So first, let's go to Juno. Juno, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. You heard a little bit about me already, but I also wanted to add a few things in the panelist section. And pronouns I already said earlier, but might as well remind: she, her, they, them. I have lived experience of homelessness, recent lived experience of homelessness, and most of my time homeless was as a transition aged youth. And other than that, youth action council member and chair on the COH. And thank you.
Thank you, Juno. And Joe, give yourself an introduction.
Thank you. I am Joe Bruno. I peer support specialist, founder of Delta Peers, lived experience advisor for the Council on Homelessness. With that said too, with the peer support lived experience, the importance of that, I've been working with statewide CAMPRO, which is the California Association of Mental Health Peer Run Organizations, and also affiliated with regionally health leads, Housing is Health. I'm also a lived experience advisor for them as well. And I'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for the intros, and then I'll get to the other stuff later.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
The next panelist introduced is Jad, who could not be with us today, but we've gotten some written answers to him that we will be sharing later on today. So, Jad, we thank you. Debbie, next.
I'm Debbie Thomas. I am the Mental Health Program Supervisor for Health, Housing, and Homeless Services.
And Candace.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Candace Wade. I am a community support worker with the Office for Consumer Empowerment. And I am a co-instructor of the Spirit program, which is a program taught in collaboration with Contra Costa Community College. And it's a program that teaches those that have navigated our system of care, whether it be a family member, a peer, a family member of a loved one, adult, and how to be a provider in our community. And I have experience in navigating homelessness as a young adult and transitional age youth. I was homeless due to not qualifying criteria, so to speak, because of the age I was in foster care, and it was just after high school.
Thank you. So what we were going to do next is we're going to move to asking some questions to the panelists. So be thinking about their answers, be thinking about some answers that you could relate to, maybe people that you know as well. Candace, what systematic things led to your homelessness? You just touched on it a little bit.
That was a little sprinkle, right? So I was sharing, I was in foster care at a young age I was around 10 to 11, and I didn't qualify for a lot of services that my sibling did because she was in foster care for a more extended period of time. So when it came to navigating those resources, housing, and other services, I was kind of the one that kind of fell in the crack because of this. My social worker at the time was used a reference of a magic number of the reason why you don't qualify for THP plus. These other housing services that my peers say was because I wasn't in foster care after the age of 13. So that was what led to my homelessness and a lot of family violence. So.
Sorry to hear that. And Joe, would you mind sharing what systematic things led to your homelessness?
I will. A lot of the times I have to go back to when I was younger around my homelessness. I was in the same house. It wasn't like we were home. I wasn't homeless, but I mean, I was still raised by the streets. So it was kind of always systematic. I was always out on the train tracks. I was always out running around somewhere. But this as an adult, there was back-to-back trauma through my whole childhood into my adulthood. When I thought that I had, I knew how to get through the system and, things were going great. I just graduated and I came back home, and I came back home to a situation that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know how to navigate through. When my partner at the time, he was coming home from prison, and I was like, okay, I gotta find housing. There's certain, I have to follow these certain rules. And I found housing. And it was great for a quick second, and then the system decided to say, nope, sorry, he can't be in that county. So then I had to do all emergency and it just didn't work out. Turned out the system was wrong and he could have gone back to the county. So it was just all of this back and forth, and I went back to family, he went to his family, and eventually what led to it was we lost the apartment police, and then I just decided not to go to an abusive relationship where I was the abuser, and so I just decided not to go back, and so I ended up in my car.
Thank you for sharing that. Kiva?
So, Juno, I'm going to ask you, and then Debbie, I'll ask you the same question. What would have been helpful to prevent your becoming homeless?
Yes. So thank you. Thank you, Kiva. So many things come to mind, but one thing that one of the things I definitely want to talk about would have been, well, at the time I became homeless, I tell a lot of people that it was when I dropped out of university, but I really became homeless while I was a student there. And, because of the policies of the university where I was at, where freshmen and sophomore students had to live on campus and use on-campus housing, and that was required. And so when my status changed, as homeless and not homeless, my status technically changed and I had no home to return to, it became even harder to even exist on the campus or exist as a student there. But also my university didn't really have any support for people experiencing those kind of issues. I think there was sort of the assumption that it just wasn't a factor for most students there. And so there was like uh, a housing sort of section of the school, bureaucracy to help people navigate housing, but it was all to help them navigate the different ways to spend their multiple thousands of dollars on the housings that was required by the university. And so like I truly became homeless during that time. And it took me a really long time to recognize that. And what would have been really helpful is like some sort of system to make me aware that, hey, like I qualify for these services that aren't being offered by my school, to support people who are experiencing issues like I am. Maybe that means that like I am homeless and that like I should, not let myself sit kind of in denial about it. And yeah, I'm not saying that it's all on me, and I think that's a really toxic way to kind of digest past memories. And sometimes I do fall into that kind of thing. We talked about trauma earlier, and like it is hard not to like fall into that sort of mentality. But yeah, so definitely would have been helpful having some sort of system there at that private school. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Juno. So it sounds like you are saying that if you had known about a system or if the system had been there, it would have been more helpful. So Debbie, the same question. What would have been helpful to prevent you becoming homeless?
I would have to say that because we have this idea of what homelessness looks like, we tend to not see the crisis, and I include myself in that definition or that perspective. I totally relate to your story. Thank you. I remember in one of the questions, Kiva interviewed me, and one of the questions was, when did you realize that you were homeless? And there were so many things happening, the divorce, and then I was trying to finish hours to get to take my first exam in law and ethics, becoming a marriage and family therapist. And the place that I had fell through. All the plans kept failing and failing and failing. And I found myself on a couch just trying to have some peace of mind to study for law and ethics. And I was with a couple of girlfriends, a lesbian couple, thank you so much. I will remember you guys forever, Julie and Hilda. And they took me in after many people didn't. And I just needed 1 month to study. And so my things were all in storage and all that, and I was pushing, they lived in this really awesome, swanky apartment complex, and there was a shopping cart in the parking structure. So when you went and got your groceries, you could put your stuff in there and get in the elevator, right? Didn't have to, you could only make one trip. And so I was like, oh, great idea. And I had a few things with me, a couple of suitcases, and I realized when I was pushing that shopping cart, that moment hit me where I was like, I'm homeless, pushing a shopping cart. And I was laughing and crying at the same time. And that was the moment when I was like, I'm in crisis. I need help. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. And it took me a long time to really reach out to family. And the friends that I had reached out to just had said no. And so that culture of not wanting to actually connect to what's real because you're trying to be the strong Black woman, that kept me from even seeing how vulnerable I was. And other people didn't recognize it either, the people that were closest to me. I think my family just thought that, Debbie Ann's gonna figure it out like she always does. So in a nutshell, let's not get stuck in what we think, believe, know what homelessness looks like, because we don't always know.
Thank you, Debbie. That's really important that we remember perception and self-perception. Outside perception and self-perception are extraordinarily important in defining what homelessness was like.
Joe, what was helpful once you became homeless?
You know, it's funny, I have Chris Farley in my head right now, right? So I'm gonna go live in a van down by the river, right? Like, that's why I was in my truck down by the river. Like, I slept in the parking lot of a bar because in a past, I don't know, past life, I don't know, years prior to that, like I found a safe zone in downtown Antioch. Like I always went down there. It's where the river was. It's, you know, it's where I went down there to pray during my younger years, and I was like, I'm just gonna go to downtown Antioch. That's where I'm gonna go. And I tell you what, I was out there for a few months and COVID hit. That's when COVID hit. And our bathrooms got taken away, my parking lot got taken away. It was pretty ugly out there during the beginning parts of COVID. And through all of that, the one thing that helped, my good old bartender, I tell you what, it's like I'm sleeping in my car in the parking lot of a bar, and you know, the ex shows up every once in a while when I'm trying to like hide in the shadows, and you know, I'm going to the bar because I've got work to do. I'm still working. I'm going to school. I was valedictorian, you know, like, so there's these things that I'm doing. And I'm sitting in my car and I'm on my computer, or I'm at the bar and I'm sitting in the way back and I'm on my computer. And, you know, I remember telling him that I was like, if this situation ever happens, I was like, this is the place I'm gonna go. And he was just like, okay. He's like, great, you know. And when I couldn't get a warm meal, he was the one that fed me. When I couldn't, you know, when I had to wash my hair, sure, go ahead and use that sink in the back, you know, like it was. So yeah, that was when I found my support in a bartender. And the beauty behind that is that bartenders are kind of like faith leaders in some circles. I mean, they can be a priest. I was like, there was it's, you know, it's a thing. And you know, when you're holding on to so much shame, when you're holding on to regret and fear and just all of that shadowy work that we go through, like, the only thing that helped was, you know, a shot in the morning, a shot in the afternoon, and a 6-pack in the evening. And that was the only thing that I could do at the point. I didn't have any other answers. I was found through my chaos, through an algorithm, when I finally got system help. They were like, are you okay? I said, no, actually I'm not. Like, you mean to tell me there's help? Yes, I need help. But I had to end up in an algorithm. And it was probably 6 months of me just being out there in my truck before I was picked up an algorithm. So
That's a really good reminder. You know, we build systems, continuums of care, but it was the act of kindness of that bartender who made you feel human and alive and real. Thank you. And the next question is for Jad. The question was, what was helpful once you became homeless?
I'm going to stand in for Jad. So Jad, hello.
Hi, Jad.
Hi, Jad. So Jad actually has stable housing in another county, and he has a job, and he was like, I can't come. And I was like, that's great. That's totally fine. Like, that's kind of what we want to hear. Interviews to build a video, and this is part of from his interview. So what was helpful? He said, honestly, being on probation helped. I had more resources to help me because I was on probation than people that are not. So I was thankful that that had happened. It got to the point in my life where I've been clean for over 8 months now. And this is probably 2 months ago. I finally moved out of my parents' house. I live in a sober living environment. I was able to get back on my feet. I got a job finally. From where I was to where I am now, the resources really, really helped me because I was, you know, not serious about getting the help that I needed. So they're definitely out there. You just got to take advantage of them. So that's from Jad.
Thank you, Jad.
I had the honor of interviewing Jad, and it was really, really special. I spent, along with Debbie, I spent 95% of the time with tears in my eyes. So Juno, the question goes to you first. What has not been helpful?
Yeah, good question. So for me, part of what wasn't helpful was, I mentioned this earlier, but sort of was the inability to be able to recognize that I was in the state I was in. And part of it was, you know, a lot of things that the other panelists have touched on, past trauma with, needing and kind of feeling like I needed to be perfect, kind of, I was like always the book smart one in the family out of like the group of cousins, and like it was always like Juno's going to end up doing just fine. We all know that's always the case. So it felt well, not only was it difficult to, because of my identity, to interact with my family, but I felt shame in like recognizing my own experiences. And honestly, and now it's I look back and I recognize the fact that, hey, I wasn't any different of a person. Like, it's not like my soul changed alignment or something. Like, I had a home and I didn't have a home, and like it didn't make me any different, except that like I had to go through different challenges and different experiences. But like in that moment, I didn't like change my person, and yeah, so it was really hard to recognize that, like, over time, like, and it took time to recognize that. And it would, yeah, I think that not, and there's a lot of reasons why, and some of them being systemic issues about like, not having the ability, or not having the resources in the university I was at, are not things like that. Part of them was myself. I was going through my own challenges with not knowing who I was separate of school, or like I was also dealing with substances at the time. I was and so all these things kind of came together and made it so I couldn't even my brain couldn't even start to think about the fact that I was homeless. And I had to have that shopping cart moment too, where I was like, I came to myself one week and I was like, wow, last week I slept on the street 3 times. Does that like, and then up to that, I'm couch surfing. And so like I'm doing survival and I'm thinking that's like, that's okay, or like I'm fooling myself, or I'm not serious about like helping myself, or I'm fooling myself that that's thriving, or something along those lines. But in reality, like, yeah, the whole time, like I needed help and I was homeless. And yeah, so it's really a big question for me, and I could keep talking about it forever. But I think that like a lot of things made it hard to recognize that I was homeless, and like having some help and just being able to come to that realization and also not beat myself up for it, and kind of come to that realization and also like have a hand and say like, you're not any worse, or you're not a worse person because of this experience. And like that would have been, gosh, just myself saying that is like myself tear up, but that would have been really helpful.
Thank you, Juno. So it sounds to me like there was a myriad of things that were not helpful. And one of the things I got out of that is that you beating up yourself was not helpful, and feeling that the expectation that you felt other people had of yourself, as along with the expectation you had of yourself, sometimes may not have been helpful. So that's something to think about. That's something to think about in our lives in general. Thank you for that, Juno. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna go to Jad first, and then Debbie, can I do that? So the same question, what was not helpful?
So Jad says, substance abuse, it's not as simple as wanting to stop. Even as your life gets worse, you want to stop, but it gets up to a point where it's not a matter of will anymore. It was really hard to hear that it was my drug use. It was my problem. People want to get help when they want to get help, and I didn't want to get help. As soon as I was willing to do the work and willing to stop using, things got a lot easier. It was just a matter of me accepting that I had a problem, taking the suggestions of what was being asked of me.
Amen.
Excellent, excellent. I was really very proud of Jad for his ownership. I told him I was really proud of his ownership because the first step towards dealing with the problem is ownership. And he owned it, and that's really awesome. Debbie, the same question. What was not helpful?
Once, I'm a veteran of the Air Force, and it was like months before it dawned on me, oh, I should probably contact the VA. And I did, and I had housing for almost 2 years through the VA. And while I'm grateful for that housing, what was not helpful while I was there was the unprofessionalism, the prejudice that I experienced, the way that it was perceived. My experience of homelessness was not from a place of empathy and compassion. There were 2 houses that this nonprofit organization had, and this was in Los Angeles. And one house was considered to be a higher functioning house for women veterans who were homeless. And then the other house was for women veterans who had more serious substance abuse issues and mental health issues. And my intake, I remember sitting in the office for 5 hours while crazy chaosness was just happening. And the woman that was giving me the intake, she was the director of the program, she made a joke. This still gets me. She said, how do you define homelessness? And I didn't know how to answer the question. I was just trying to be housed. And she went on to list all these things, and she was laughing about it. Thank you. She was laughing about it, going, you don't have the keys if your name's not on the lease. And I just thought, is this really where I want to be? That was like my welcoming for my experience there. And I think that because I had goals and I had a lot of resources, and I felt like I was probably in a privileged position based on the experience of the other women that were there, that I had to really be careful about how I interacted with the staff. Great relationships with the women that were there. That was helpful. But what was not helpful was the way it was, I can't even say managed, but the way it was run. I felt like I was in a penal institution, honestly. There was no regard for the mental health issues that I was dealing with, which was anxiety and depression and PTSD from early childhood sexual trauma. But I kept trying to get pinned into the way that they did their program. You had to go to substance abuse counseling, you had to go to these meetings all the time, and no matter how many times I said I have to work, I would literally see clients. Many of the women that I lived with, I were like the women I had in my practice, trying to get my hours. And so it was a difficult road to navigate with all of the other things that you're just trying to get in order to get your life back in order, where you feel like the people who are supposed to be supporting you are actually, sometimes I felt like I was being made fun of and not really respected because my situation was maybe not as dire as someone else's. So for me, it's really about really seeing the person, no matter what their other circumstances are.
Thank you, Debbie. So I hear a thread. It's about how we perceive and our perspective. And it's about how we're perceived by ourselves and by others, and the empathy that we need when we're in spaces and in situations. And the unhoused are extraordinarily vulnerable. And therefore, think about when you are individually, when you have been in a vulnerable situation, what type of empathy would have helped at least make you feel better? What did you need when it came to empathy? Because there may have been an issue of how the service was set before Debbie, but that individual person could have made it a different experience, just simply by being empathetic. So thank you very much, Debbie. I know you asked me that question, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to enter whatever you want to enter with the last question that Wayne's going to give you. So you can enter.
Oh, I'll just add it to it.
And I'll just let y'all know, we're good on time.
We're good on time.
And we have until 3, so like, we have some flex to do what you need to do.
Okay. Oh, well, if that's the case, then you go ahead.
Yeah, I just said I was gonna chime in really quick about, because I know I'm not on the list to answer this question of what's not helpful, but hearing these conversations, something hit to me that I think is really important to kind of bring out that the not in my backyard, the NIMBYism, right? And then there's also that we can go back to the beginning of society, whatever you want to say that, but you got the settlers and then you've got the gypsies, the travelers, right? So you've always had this like back and forth kind of, I don't want them in my backyard. While I was homeless, I can't tell you how many times I was sitting at that bar and the customers, they didn't know who I was just another local drunk. And they would always say, well, the problem with Antioch is the homeless. The problem with Antioch is the reason why Antioch is so dirty is because it's the homeless. The reason why Antioch's not getting money is because of the homeless. Everything always came out of the homeless. So I would talk to them and I would get their why they think it was the homeless. And they would say all these things and I'm saying, by the way, I'm sleeping in my car in this exact parking lot tonight. And they're like, you can't be homeless. But guess what, I am. But you have a job and you're so well educated. And I'm still homeless. So this perspective, like we really have to explain to the settlers that, how do I say that? I can't say that with a straight smile, but it's a thing. It's, yeah, that's not helpful at all.
Culture.
Indeed.
Yes. I met Joe Bruno a long time ago.
Long time ago.
I've been helping homeless for a very long time. I've been helping homeless for 48 years. I was homeless. I ran away from a group home because I was beat till I couldn't walk by my parents. I was put in a group home. I ran through group homes because they were worse. I fell through the cracks. They weren't missed. I still went to school. I did everything, but I met the best bunch of people. I tell you right now, the Antioch homeless are the best bunch of people you ever meet in your life. They're a family. Charlie Watson, God rest his soul. Robert Hennessy, Cowboy, all of them who took me in, and when I was a little kid, and watched over me like a hawk. I was a little bad, I'll tell you, I was a badass, I ain't gonna lie. I was out there training, I was doing my thing,
Yeah.
I was a little badass, so I ain't gonna lie about that. But they set me straight, okay? They said, hell no, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. They made sure I stayed the course, you know what I mean? And the most beautiful thing is, I was never a victim of homelessness. It made me the man I am today. I'm out here saving lives, thousands of people's lives every day out here in California, all over the place. I'm not tooting my horn, I'm stating a fact, okay? We're out here doing this, we're saving lives, and it's all because of them. I would not be here today if it wasn't for the homeless community of Antioch, okay? And what I'm getting at though is, I can put this. The people here, I listen to your guys' stories, I can totally relate, believe me, I can relate to a lot of stuff you guys said. Each person has their own story of life. Sorry that's happened. I mean, but me, I was beat till I was, well, I couldn't walk. I was out there doing my thing and everything, and I helped the homeless at Brown Bag for over 30 years, doing it Brown Bag, my church. I used to go to, and helped at Brown Bag. Got to meet everybody and be family with everybody, and still to this day. And what was rewarding to me, I want to get to that is so I'm off track. What I want to get at is, I started American Homeless Crews, proving that to everybody that the homeless do love and care for the community, because it was a witch hunt 10 years ago against the homeless in Sacramento, all over California. All you heard was homeless story that's aimed at Antioch, Joe just mentioned. Antioch was really bad. Everybody thinks homelessness is a story in the community, you know? We shut them up. We were out there, we were cleaning every day. My crew's been out there cleaning in Antioch every day out here. People don't know who they are, but look around. You gotta have eyes, look around. You see people keeping their clean camps out there doing their thing. Guaranteed 98% of my American Homeless Crew members out here doing it. You know, I'm family of mine or people that know me, you know, they know they're keeping the community clean and safe. You've got a bad reputation, bad idea about homelessness. To me, it was the best thing ever happened to me in my life. Each your own story, but to me, it changed me who I am. You know, in the 80s, who grew up watching homelessness, thinking homeless was a bad thing, like Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, and all that stuff everybody made homeless look like a bad thing, right? It saved my life. When I was out there, it made me the man I am today. Like I repeat again, made me am today. I grew up, I laid that down, did my thing in my life, and made a career of my life. Then I came back and helped those who helped me, and I'm doing it every day since. Like my aunt Thelma taught me to do when I was a little kid. She's the one that was just all, she's the one that turned me on to helping the homeless when I was a little kid. And I've been doing it ever since. But I'm gonna get at those. When I think I met Joe Burnham when I was down there at Charles Watson's funeral, right? And me and her talk and everything. I try to help everybody down, you know, everything. I was kind of bitter back then. I lost Charlie Watson. He was like it was more than like a brother. He was like a dad to me. And one thing I can say about this, though, I'm trying to get at, I'm getting off track again. What I'm trying to get at, though, is the homeless out there in Antioch is the best bunch of people. I don't care what somebody says, man. They're going to have a fight on my hands if they try to tell me different. Because I'll tell you right now, I trust my life with them before I trust my life with anyone else. Okay?
And so what I hear from you is what we've been talking about, perspective and perception. And I hear that your homeless community showed empathy. And that's the important piece. That sounds like the really important piece. It's perspective, it's perception of ourselves when we're unhoused, of others when they're unhoused, and it's the empathy that we show to ourselves, young lady, empathy that we show to ourselves as well as to others. That is really the lift. Okay, so thank you, sir. And that's why you won the thriving. So Wayne.
And with that, so we've had the opportunity to meet our panelists and to meet each other for a little bit. We've had some things to think about and to consider. And for the last question is the take-home message for the panelists. What do you want people to know or to do as a result of hearing your stories? Juno, could you answer that first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take my time. I definitely, there's like a few things that come up for me, and like I'm prompted to like think about, have these thoughts too after hearing the experiences of my panelists and like hearing the conversations. And like I definitely want people to actually think about what they consider homelessness to be. Like not as simple as like, okay, well, this is the definition given to us by this agency, or, you know, this is the definition as described by this prerequisite to receive funding or whatever, but like actually sit down and think to themselves, what is my personal definition? And like with that, like interrogate if that definition involves some sort of negative bias. And like if it does, it's an opportunity to think about why. And like I think like for me, if I sat down and did that 3 years, even a year ago, when I was a year and a half ago, when I was experiencing homelessness, I probably, when I was in the middle of experiencing like when I was in a really bad spot a few years ago, if I had like asked myself that question, I probably would have said, a lot of, I would have recognized a lot of negative biases towards myself, towards my own experiences, towards the experiences of like, and adverse, and also like connected, even though it's not like I was like visibly doing this, but like also towards the experience of my peers, my coworkers, and like not being able to be as supportive or as open as I could be in the ways that I needed to be. And because I had this sort of stigma and this sort of negative bias internalized in myself. And yeah, I think that would be a really good take home message for a lot of people, to kind of like examine that bias. And like it doesn't really have a reason, and for me it doesn't really have a reason for existing, except for that's how we think about homelessness socially. And it's like, if that's the case, then like I can decide what my own definition is. And I can't remember the person who just spoke before me with the hat on, who's near the front. But I think that like what you said definitely struck for me too, is that like I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't experienced that. And I am definitely better off because of those experiences than I ever would have been if I hadn't had them. And I couldn't imagine who I would be today if I didn't have those experiences. And I have so much strength, and like I never even knew that I had. And like, and so yeah, I think that like I never could have said that 2 years ago. I never could have seen that in my own experience. And I think it's, yeah, so it's worth, I think that's my take home message, kind of like think about that and like interrogate that bias, and where does it come from, and is it helpful? Like, yeah.
Thank you, Juno. A lot to think about and wrestle with. Yeah, a lot to think about. Joe?
Oh, Juno, I'm sending you hearts.
I see you, Joe. I'm sending you hearts too. And thank you.
What's my message? In a nutshell, nothing about us without us. Stop making decisions without our voice, okay? That's just right off the top. But with that said, I'm gonna go a little deeper because I've been doing this work for 20 some odd years. I've been doing this work for 20 some odd years. I didn't even know that peer support specialist was a thing until just recently. And California is just now pushing for it, right? Like that lived experience perspective, that peer support specialist, we need them at the table all the time, at every table, all the tables. I mean, can they chair the tables, run the tables? Can they be the policymakers? The people with lived experience, I think that is very, very important. And the other thing too, and this is personal, hashtag Cup of Joe Bruno, it's time to pay me. I need to get paid, y'all. Like, I need to get paid. I've been working on this one very specific kind of like thread of lived experience perspective for our county. And I can't tell you how important this work is and how it needs to be at all the tables. And so far, I'm the only one tooting the horn about the importance of the lived experience perspective. What's weird about it, and me, again, hashtag Cup of Joe Bruno, because I'm gonna take a Jay-Z line. I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. Like, I am my brand. Everywhere I go, I am selling myself. I've been doing that my entire life. Like, I can say that I started selling myself at 11 years old. Hot shot, yeah, I was a street worker, right? Like, I was selling myself then. I was selling myself when I was trying to do school. I was selling myself when I was, so here I am trying to sell myself. And my message is that I've got some stuff that'll work for the system, and I'm just tired. I think that my humility is out the wall, is just way out the window. I've lost my humbleness, but I'm still very much like, again, okay, without this experience, I wouldn't be who I am. I love who I am because I'm pretty rad. And also with that said, that lived experience perspective, there is always a message of hope. that resiliency, like I can be the poster child of resiliency, right? Like I'm exhausted, but there's always a message of hope. We all have it. We all have that. I've seen some darkness. I've had to come through something, but look at me now. I'm standing. I am on all 10 toes. I have my life, and I am a suicide survivor twice over. I'm here, and I'm, yay. You know, I'm doing the work of my ancestors. So I'm bringing the Bruno name to the county line, and so here I am, and I'm very glad to be here too. Yeah,
Thank you,
there's
Jo.
my message. Thank you.
And Chad.
Jad checking in from work. Jad says, there's still people that are willing to help. There are genuinely people that want to help and are interested in ending homelessness. It was good to at least find someone that cared. That was the thing that helped a lot, knowing that some people do care.
Yes. Again, care has been the universal message. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Chad. And Debbie.
There are two things I want people to know, and I guess people in this context is like you guys. So the first thing is that this is the first time I've told my story publicly. And it's her fault.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, so when Jamie Jeanette was telling me about this event, she was saying, we need a veteran that has experience with homelessness and mental health issues. And I was like, oh, shit. I couldn't hide. So, you know, it's like the right thing to do. And so, yeah. And what I realized in that conversation also was that I still have a lot of shame and embarrassment. And so that said to me that I have some more healing that I need to do. And in one of our conversations of planning this event, Joe, you were talking about thriving in the face of homelessness and rolling our eyes, right? And when I look back, like Juno just said, when I look back at this experience, I'm grateful that I had it. Believe it or not, I'm grateful. It made me who I am today. It seems like a full circle moment that I got this job in February of this year as the supervisor for health, housing, and homeless services. And so I want you to know that that's where I am, and I'm still healing in this process. And the other thing I want you to know is that when we tell our stories, this thing that I had to do, we connect to people. And like I connected to those women at that VA housing, and we connect to each other's traumas. And we realize that traumas, as being a licensed marriage and family therapist, I always think in systems, right? Whether that's the system with myself or the system with my partner who's on the Zoom call, or the family system that I grew up in, the community, my church, like all of those systems, right? The county systems, all the systems. Whether our traumas come out of whatever those relationships are, I also know that trauma is healed in the relationship. Yes. So that's why I had to say yes to Jamie. And so this is a part of my healing, you guys. So I just want to like take a little moment to be like it's happening like right here, right now, right now. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
To walking beyond shame. And Candace, would you like to? What would you like people to know what to do as a result of hearing your story?
So something that'd be helpful is something that I had to do as a young adult growing up and having to grow up at a young age was to I utilized a lot of my words, right? Like how to navigate through things, and people would just look at me like, well, she's got it figured out, you know. It's like, no, humble yourself. You know, I had to really humble myself and say, no, I really need help. Yes, I called this person, call that person, and it's just kind of the runaround. And so, you know, one thing I want to leave you guys with is really, I think that something that would be helpful, just me, my personal and professional setting, is humbling, I say ourselves, because many of us are one paycheck away from becoming homeless. You know, one salary away from becoming homeless. One, you know, if we don't have daycare, if we don't have many of these things, you know, it's not about brands, labels, none of that. It's not about these fancy cars, you know, and I really had to realize that for myself and my upbringing. And, you know, I'm a mom now, right? I have a 1-year-old daughter, I'm married, and stable housing. So, like, you know, I regardless of who we praise, we have to humble ourselves, right? Before our peers and the people we serve, because we all are equal, and we're one paycheck away. Many of us are. If our significant other isn't working, you know, I can almost guarantee you somebody that is currently unhoused probably knows what to do when there is a crisis before some of us that are like, we're so used to having lights and water running and stuff, right? So, you know, and I just say that because to bring awareness, because when we walk outside, when we put our shoes on, lace our straps, people don't have that, right? And I also think about the video of, it's on YouTube, but it's like a equity video where it's like, takes two steps forward if you were raised in a 2-parent household and so forth. But I just want to leave you guys with that, because, you know, I found myself as even today, I still identify as a young adult because we're always learning, right? I am, right? And I found myself navigating some community resources that were, I went into a housing crisis recently, and I called somebody told me that no, sorry, there's no funding available. So, okay, you don't know. Let me go look at this MHS plan online, right? No, really, and we have to do that for our people, right? Yeah. So not just ourselves, my husband had lost his job unexpectedly. So I'm like, oh crap, I gotta put this hat on, right? Yeah. So I had to do that, and somebody told me no, but he said yes, so somebody said, actually there is some funding. I said, okay, yeah, so and then is there other we have to do that for our clients that we're serving, because we're just one paycheck away. And I had to humble myself before, I'm like, you know what? Because I would not have anything, if it weren't for my experiences and my higher power, and that's just that's how I, and so I'm so tremendously grateful to be sitting before you guys, because it's just, it could be gone like that, and I just wanted to share that, and thank you so much for being here and just hearing, sometimes these squeaky wheels can be like, oh, some people may, but it's not always harmonious hearing somebody's truth, but take the wisdom and the stories behind that, and remember that we're people's children, we're somebody's daughters, so forth. And so when we're serving our community, regardless if we are in, regardless of where we work, or where we're at, that's somebody's child,
Yes.
And so that's what I'm gonna show you guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much. I am truly humbled, really, I am truly humbled before all of you all, Juno and Jad and Debbie and Candace and Joe. You all are extraordinarily brave to tell your story, and it's extraordinarily important that you tell your story, because like Joe has said, and I have said this, not just in this space, but in the hungry community as well, those with the experience have the gold. And so as long as we continue to tell our stories, the gold is gonna get, somebody's gonna hear. Some ear is gonna finally open, some heart is gonna finally open, some brain is gonna finally start working, and the solution will be seen because it's already there. It's just not seen by the right people. It's already there. So thank you so much. So now we have about 25 minutes for Q&A. And so what I'd like you to do is you can take a few minutes and write down your questions on the sheet, and I'll do that. I will answer those questions. Meanwhile, those people who are online, we encourage you to put your questions in the chat to the host, and I will read out the question. I want you, and if I haven't directed the question to the right person, then you may let me know that, but I will be, so you're gonna give me the questions?
Yes.
You're gonna give me the questions?
And Shelby's gonna monitor the ones there.
And Shelby will be
Okay,
monitoring the
you just
questions
ask her.
that are online and passing those on to us as well.
Any questions? Just, I'll come get them.
And Wayne said he will come and
Yep.
collect the questions from you. Again, thank you, Ms. LaVonna Martin, for congratulations for being Woman of the Year.
Yes.
Thank you, but I just want to thank the panel. I have so much love. Just incredible. I miss, just to be fully transparent, I miss this. I get to do a lot of things now in my role, and that's fantastic. I continue to support H3, but I don't get an opportunity to dive with you and sit with you as much as I used to. So this was a real blessing for me. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Candace. I still feel like you're a transition age youth too.
I know you're not.
But that's where, that's where I met you. And so I still, and just to see you, such just this new place is just your mom now, which is awesome.
I know that.
And Debbie, holy moly. Such a blessing to have you at H3. So thank you for taking this moment to start healing with us. Thank you for that. So I appreciate the time today. I appreciate everyone's, just spending it here and listening, because you really are, you're the women and men of the year. So, not me. It is definitely day in and day out, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
I wanted to share something in my own, I guess, my own feelings. This panel, I think it was very refreshing to hear all of you be so brave and to have that strength. And you're right, healing comes from sharing. I know that it helped me a lot because I learned that through my own, I was inspiring others. And if we can take it from that point of inspiration to others, because wisdom comes to you when you're ready to share it, and that's just my humble being. But what I think we should do as future leadership is not just take this movement in a civic form and wave, but also to the next level in a legislative way. Because right now in America, this crisis is monumental. And it's not just California, it's not just one county. We deal with different counties. And like my husband said, we hear it all the time. And what you said about the stereotype is very important to be communicated. Not just to the level of the community or people, but to the leadership. Because they need to hear, they need to learn that the book is not judged by its cover. And I would like to have our leaderships, our council, our statesmen, everybody have some training in homelessness.
And walk a day in their shoes.
If that, you know how you train about what sexual abuse is or sexual harassment? Why can't the labor department put some kind of
I'm
training?
gonna come back.
Why can't we do that?
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Okay, so the first question that we have is, service trauma affects my friend who lives in the woods. He needs
Severe trauma.
intervention. I'm sorry, severe, please forgive me. Severe trauma affects my friend who lives in the woods. He needs intervention to get housed. But to get him to accept intervention, I can't make him do it. So, what was the real question? Who gave me this? So what was the actual question?
How can you help somebody? You care, you're doing what you can, but what, probably because of his trauma, he's not accepting it. Go them to a place where you can spend the night at the last minute. No, what about my stuff that's in the woods? I can do it, you know, and then the next night, and then the next night, and, you know. So I stayed into a week in a motel, but that didn't solve the problem.
So any of you all want to make?
Well, if there are any members from CORE, H3.
That's all. It's all right.
If there are any staff here from CORE,
I think we have.
I think that they would, if I can speak to that from their perspective, you know, they do street outreach and they're there every day and they go back and they go back and they go back and they go back.
Persistence.
Yeah.
And yeah, being there.
I agree that the persistence, we cannot, no, I tell my daughters often, I couldn't force you to, I couldn't force you to do everything when you were a kid, right? There were some things I could pick you up and force you to do, but as an adult, I can't force you to do anything. You have to make that choice. And we in our attempt to be empathetic in your vulnerable situation, your friend's vulnerable situation, we still have to understand his humanity and not force him. So the issue is that continued reaching out, Joe, that continued reaching out.
And it's one of the hardest things to do, to keep doing. When you have, you know, the services, right? Like Jad said, like he took advantage of it. Being on probation for him was actually, it opens him up to even more services. But when you are reaching out to someone like you are, and they're like, no, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna stay here, that is a very heavy, heavy thing to hold. I hear it in your question, you know, writing it down. It's just hard.
Can I say something, James? I run into this all the time. Can I say something to this question? Did you say the reason why? Did you say the reason why you can't move?
I have.
He's got his tent and his supplies in the thicket where he's been busted for camping 3 times. And the shelter that he could go to, which might turn into a longer-term program, is too far for him to take care of what's in the thicket.
So this was very important for me to coming out of homelessness. I was strung out, I was homeless, and I was on drugs. And I was surrounded by resources, surrounded by a warming center and all of that, places I went to every day. But I was not in a place yet to receive that help, you know. And so what I find doing the work that I do now in encampments and outreach and everything is it is so very important to develop trust, to develop time. We are not projects to be solved. We are human beings with real needs, real pain, real difficulties, you know. Just the best thing that we can do is just to be a friend and to be consistent about it. And over time, and the fortune, he'll reach out to you when he's ready.
His heart will open and his eyes will open.
Also, I wanted to say something else too. I'm a little, just a different perspective. Meet him where he is. Don't force him to meet you where you are,
Yes.
right? So meeting him where he is really just understanding why he's there and why he's comfortable and, you know, like, and just, maybe he is just okay there. And maybe that's exactly where he needs to be for the moment. And I say that to say that sometimes you just need to hide. Sometimes it can get so bad that the only thing that we can do is hide. And sometimes some of us need that. And, you know, make sure that he's as well as he could be in the situation that he's in. But again, you know, you can't force somebody to do something, right? You know, and meet them where they are and meet them with compassion, love, and a hot meal.
Patience.
You know, a pair of socks and maybe a blanket.
The reason I asked about why, it's got to get to the point that 98% of the time it has to do with their pets. Because the shelter won't allow their pets.
They don't want to leave their pets and belongings.
Little story. I was driving down the street, saw a woman laying on the street. She was actually laying in the part where you pull off. And the dog was on the sidewalk. I stopped and I went back to her. And she was so weak and frail. And she asked me, I said, I'm gonna call the ambulance, you need me, because she couldn't even get up. No, I can't leave my dog. So I promised her that I would take her dog for the night while she went to the hospital. Absolutely right. And I did. I took her dog for the night because I had 2 dogs myself. Took her dog for the night. And when she called me the next day, I took her dog to her. It was important for her to have that dog safe in order for her to get help. And she was homeless, but in order for her to even be willing to go to the hospital.
Yes.
Yes. She worried about her pet. And so when I took that pet, she was so grateful that I said I would take that dog.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful dog. I wanted to keep him. But I took him back next day. Okay.
I was gonna just add, that's part of, during COVID, when all of our shelters shut down, that's part of why, when we remodeled the Concord and Richmond shelters, part of what we did was made sure that there's now capacity for pets. Because so many people are like, I probably wouldn't leave my dogs. Like if I had an okay, not great situation to move into an okay, not great situation, I'm not gonna leave my dog.
It is the empathy of understanding it. It's really easy to say from a sort of an outside position, oh, it's just a pet. That is somebody, some love. There is love, there is relationship.
That's their emotional
There's
support.
connection, there is,
Yes.
you know, when you can depend on nothing else, you know, there is that. It's not just the problems that people find themselves in, it is the solutions for those problems that you may not understand, but provide solace and peace for people in that situation.
All right, the next question. Thank you all for your input into the answer of that question. I listened and learned that there's a gap between resources and community. How would you address that?
I got an answer. That's what I've been doing. I've been trying to figure this out for a long, long time. And there's a huge gap, right? There's a separation. And I'm always like, the system workers in the community, the resources in the community, like there is a disconnect because the community doesn't trust the system. Sure, the system is made up of people, but I don't trust the system. I'm part of the system and I still don't trust it, right? Because of the way that policies are written, because of the way that the red tapes and how long it takes to get through something. And I mean, it is ridiculous. Yeah. So how do the resources get to the people and how do the people get the resources? There's this, like I said, I've been working in this county for 7 years now, trying to thread this needle through this conversation. Because again, it's that lived experience perspective. But to get that lived experience perspective, there has to be some sort of training for that story to come out. There is still something missing. Like the system can't just show up and get that story. There has to be some sort of trust building. And this takes time, right? You have to get them comfortable enough in their regret and their shame for them to finally say, okay, not only am I ready to receive help, I'm ready to come up with other solutions if those resources aren't helping. And it takes a lot for somebody who's in their car, for somebody who is chronically homeless and just, you know, all the mental and the addiction and everything else that comes with it. Like, they need some peer support, right? Like, I am threading the peer support model to be inside of our homeless shelters. The peer support, the peer respite model, to bring that model into our homeless system of care. It would change the issue of when you first come in for your intake. Those people who are right there, they're peers. They know exactly how you feel already. They're not just some system worker, some clinician. They actually, like, the person who's doing the intake has been there, done that, and maybe have a t-shirt, maybe like an entire, like, pantsuit that goes with it, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so that's what I say, is there's that thread. Exactly. There's the thread between community and system, and it really is just finding the humanity, helping the person with lived experience, helping them through their trauma and their personal shame and their regret, and the system can't do that. That's individualized. So there it is.
Okay, so we're gonna take a few more minutes because I see that we have some comments and questions. So Wayne, would you like to take that away for us?
Sure. Let's see. We got a question here. A question to any one of the panelists. Do you ever still feel it could happen again? And do you have plans that will help you in that event?
So I'm currently still homeless. Thank you very much. Do I have a plan? I don't know. I've been chronically homeless for, gosh, 3 years?
Now?
Jeez, wow. Now, currently, yes. If it wasn't for a family friend who said absolutely you could stay here through the holidays, I'd be in my truck again. And why?
Is this a choice?
No, of course not. I mean, it was a choice to not go back to an abusive relationship, but of course not, it's not a choice. Absolutely not. But
If I might answer the question, I think that for me, it's like part of me, there's a part of me that wants to say yes, it can't happen again. It's a part of me that wants to say no, and it's kind of based on my experiences. Like, I am stable now, and like there's the foreseeable ways for that to be upended would have to be very drastic, like even probably more drastic than what occurred previously when the previous times I was homeless. But also part of healing and because my experience with homelessness is still so recent, I haven't allowed myself to be in that safe mentality yet. Like, I'm still learning how not to be in survival mode, and how to like use my resources and my capabilities more efficiently to do to be contributing other ways. But like, doing survival takes a lot of energy and consumes everything, like when that has to be the focus of your forefront. So I think that like the part of me that wants to say yes, I'm done with this can't happen again, but like, there is a part of me that always is always like, well, anything could go wrong, just like it did it before. Like, you couldn't have predicted it before. So like, it's a dual answer for me. And do I have a plan? Well, because the previous times I was homeless, I was transition age youth, my plan would be different than before. And that does scare me in a lot of ways. But I have a lot more knowledge of the system now and myself, but I do have a plan, and I don't like it, is basically if it were to happen again.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Do you have?
You want me to?
Good.
Okay, this is a question from someone in the room. I can probably answer this one. What is the red tape involved to help with cleaning and providing hygiene products to encampments? And are these resources and flyers handed out to the encampments? I could actually answer this. So I work for Bay Area Rescue Missions. We provide a lot of this stuff out to encampments. This is where a lot of faith-based organizations, a lot of smaller groups really shine. So first of all, if you come to any shelters or warming centers in the county, our shelter, you come to GRIP, you come to any of these other places, Brookside, Concord Shelter, and ask for these things. ask for clothing, ask for hygiene products. The most humane thing that you can give are bathroom and hygiene products. That is, I can't tell you how important that is when you're homeless, to be able to take care of that. So no, there are plenty of opportunities to distribute those things. I would recommend, if you're interested in getting involved with that, to reach out probably to Jamie.
There will be a slide with information.
There will be a slide,
Thank you, Wade.
yes, and we can go there for that. So anyone else want to add to any, Juno or anyone else?
Excuse me, I was just gonna after you were done.
Do you want to add to that anything?
I will say, just representing the city of Antioch, the train tracks, you can I can't tell you how many times I've seen people just drop food off, just drop, like, Sunday mornings downtown, they get together for oatmeal and fried chicken, and every time somebody comes with clothing and just dumps it on the table, and we literally just go through it as we're getting ready for breakfast. I mean, I think this sweater actually came from one of those bins, it's, there are places that you don't necessarily have to go through the system to do that stuff, the red tape behind it, I would say definitely faith-based would be the place to go with the donation side of things. But there are a lot of people donating. There are a lot of people that have hygiene and things available. And even I would even go as far as saying community colleges as well, students at the community colleges.
Yes.
There's some place in there too to help.
So you wrote your name down
I
on
was
the.
just going to ask a very, very quick question. Thank you so much. This has really, really been great. Awesome. We should do that at AOD. Regardless of addiction, that I get it. You got to get in the bottom. You got to hit it before you say, okay, I need help. And hopefully by now we have places for the overdosing, for rehab, for housing, and we're working on those and more. And with 211, hopefully we're working to answer some questions that we can maybe hold hands at the moment, and we're working. So the county and Jamie and they're all working really hard to answer all the questions. But I have a question. The moment that you had that moment, that you realized that, oh, what now? I don't have a home. What could county do for you at that second? What can the taxpayer do for you at that second? What, is it a phone call you would have made that you needed a help? Or is it a search in a computer? Was it being somewhere? What, only that second, what could have helped you not to experience what you experienced? A person? A doctor?
I think for me, it would have been, at that very exact moment, it would have been like a place to sleep for the night, at least to get my bearings for the next day. Because it's like, I felt like I couldn't even plan because I needed to make sure I could get someplace to sleep, but it was already getting dark and it's already cold. And so it's like, it was unable to move forward. But also I think for my situation, it also would have been like having knowledge or like having some sort of visibility of those resources at my at my university, because like part of it is like we can do the immediate doing the immediate sort of intervention would be like great, but like part of it is also like would have been, for my case, prevention would have helped me, like pre-intervention services. The word's not coming to me at the moment because I'm feeling very emotional, but prevention stuff, and just knowing that those resources were available at all, so that when that moment came, I could say, I know what to do tomorrow, or I know where to go. I think that those two things for me would have been like helpful in that scenario you described.
Thank you for that question.
Sure. Something that would be helpful for me was if there was some type of homeless program for young adults that were literally just 18. Because for me, I was during that crisis period, I was experiencing mental health crisis because of being on the streets at a young age, and being exposed to a lot of stuff that, and so if there was some type of like housing program for young adults that are in kind of limbo because of, whatever their circumstances are, falling in the cracks from foster care, or, something for our age population, like 18 to 24, that's more ideal, because for me as a young adult, at that age, I was like, I don't feel comfortable going to a homeless shelter. I'm a vulnerable young, woman, child still essentially, right? For me, so that's where I was like, I am safer on the bench, is than to be exposed. So yeah.
And last question. The temporary time that you need to be in the place, that do you need it for a month before you get up and going and do whatever you need to do, or 2 months or 5 months? I mean, how many
So
more
this
months?
is what I was gonna, it goes off of this question. What I was gonna say to this is that prior to being homeless, somebody's already in crisis.
Right.
Homelessness is the product of a crisis that happened
Yes.
before,
Thank
right?
you, yeah.
So in every single one of our situations, it's gonna be different. The crisis is different. For me personally, I think about this and I feel like, I go back to the video and I'm like, I was a kid. Like, why didn't anybody reach out then? Because that was when I needed the help. Like I became homeless 42 years after the crisis. I'm 42 years old, wait, hold on, 41 years. Oh, I'm 40 years in here that I was okay. But I'm just saying, like, the crisis was continual before the homelessness. So I feel like, my 5150, like there's no reason for me to see what I saw during my 5150 while I was in there. And I can still see it. And what I saw was disgusting. It's just strange. So, we're already in crisis before we are sleeping in our cars or on a bench somewhere. We're already in crisis. So what helps? A hug. Yeah, just get a hug sometimes. Really? Really. Yeah. Really.
That's so loud.
I just want to name, we are like at time, so I want to respect people's time. I want to have like 4 hours of this. I cannot say enough about how grateful I am for all of the work that you all put into making this happen. There was a lot of meeting and planning and thinking and courage that needed to be gathered, and I really am very, very grateful. I also wanted to say, for folks in the room and for folks on the screen, there are a lot of ways to get involved and engaged and continue to be part of these conversations, continue to be part of the solutions, continue to keep learning, building relationships. So I'm not going to go through all of them in the interest of time, but there are basically planning meetings you can be part of. There's activities and events we have going on. There's a mailing list, and you can pick what you want to get so you don't get 900 emails from me, although some of you still do. I also want to give a huge shout out to Shelby. You all were amazing interns for the hybrid event. It actually went better than I anticipated. But just thank you all really for your time and your willingness to share your stories, and for you all for coming and sticking it out to the end. I think we are done here. Please take coffee and cookies.
And I'm so grateful for the online presence. I've been reading the chat, and it's just been so great to have this hybrid experience. Hoorah.
Thank you
Thank you, everybody.
No.